Welcome. My name is Kinetic Symphony. I'm a narrator focusing on glitch in the Matrix stories. Let's get into it. Story title. There was this weird experience I had where I felt like there was a glitch that allowed me to see what was coming down the road. Author name: Sita 2000. Okay, so about 4 years ago, I had a very weird experience that has stuck with me ever since. I was driving home from work, and it was about 4 AM. It was pretty much just me on that road, at that hour. I have driven on this exact route many times, and I've never seen a deer, especially since this particular stretch of the freeway was far away from the mountains where most of the deer tend to reside. But as I'm driving, I feel like things slow down, and then all of a sudden, I see a part of the road that I'm not actually going to reach for a few minutes. I see a doe walk out of some trees on the right side of the road, look in my direction, and then slowly walk off to the left side and disappear off into some shrubs. In an instant, the view in front of me changed back to where I physically am on the road. As I approached the place I just had this vision of, I decided to slow down since I was going about 70 miles per hour and figured if a deer is truly going to cross, I should prepare. And sure enough, I get to that particular stretch of road and the deer walks out of the trees, looks at me, and wanders off into the shrubs on the left, exactly how I just saw it a couple minutes before. If I hadn't have slowed down, I would have had very little time to react and probably would have hit that deer. So I asked this author if his ability ever manifested since then, and he replied, "There have been a couple other times where something similar happened. A few years ago, my family was going to a large park downtown for a holiday celebration, and I was going to join them, but the image of a gun popped into my head, and I got a weird feeling about there being a shooting, so I decided to stay home. I told my family that I felt uncomfortable with going, and they just thought it was weird. I didn't try to convince them to stay home because, well, I thought maybe I was just having some anxiety. A few hours later, I got a call from my mom saying that a couple people got into a fight, and one of them started shooting with no regard to all the other people around. Luckily, no one was injured. Usually this park is very family friendly, so for there to be a shooting is very unusual. This next one is kind of embarrassing for me to admit, since it's a bit silly. I was out of state for an internship when one of my aunts passed away. My mom had called me to discuss some of the funeral arrangements, and then randomly asked, "Guess who the bishop looks like who is going to lead the service?" At that moment, a very clear image of the comedian Jim Gaffigan's face appeared in my mind, so I blurted it out. "Jim Gaffigan?" My mom paused and then asked, "Yes, how do you know?" She hadn't given me any clues, and I hadn't thought about that comedian in a long time, so it seemed so random that I would somehow know that. The scenario wasn't as important as my other experiences, but it was just as clear. Personal thoughts. You know, these premonitions bewilder me because I go back to quantum uncertainty. There's no way to predict the future because there is no singular future. I mean, there shouldn't be anyways, as we understand physics. At the fundamental particle level, everything is uncertain, even to the universe. But also that this chaos is exponential with time. So, the further into the future you go, the less accurate a single prediction can be. It's the same reason that weather forecasters just can't reach anything close to perfect accuracy, especially after 3 to 4 days. That seems to be the cutoff where it's more of a coin flip. In your case, it was just a few minutes ahead, so it makes sort of sense. But still begs the question of how on earth you're able to do this. Incredible ability. Second story. Story title: I could see myself talking in the mirror. Author name: Egypt_25. Hi all. First time poster here. I couldn't ignore these two things that happened to me on the same day. 1. I have a cheap Fitbit style watch that I wear all the time. About 2 weeks ago at work, I walked into a wall. I'm clumsy, that kind of stuff happens all the time. The watch scraped against the wall, and I got a deep etched scratch right down the center of the face of it. I was really annoyed and resigned myself to the fact that, well, I probably was going to have to buy a new one. This past Wednesday, having been looking at the scratch every day for 2 weeks, the scratch just wasn't there anymore. There is no evidence that it ever was there, but I know it had been. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy I don't have to buy a replacement, but it's messing with my mind a little. 2. Just after I discovered the disappeared scratch, I was in the pub. We were sat in a booth that had one mirror behind it. I was opposite the mirror, but had turned to say something to the person next to me. I turned back to facing the mirror when I caught my reflection lagging. My head had turned back, but my mouth was still moving. Now I'm pretty sure the second can be explained by the fact that I was tired and just seeing things, but I don't know about the first, or both of them combined. Personal thoughts. So I asked the author a few questions. This is what I asked, and this is what he answered. So reading the comments on this post, I'd ask if the scratch you saw on the watch was possibly just paint fragments embedded in the watch, which eventually crusted over and fell off. It seems like a possibility. If you're certain it was an actual abrasion on the watch itself, then that's definitely an unsettling glitch. The alternate reality is often on the table, but the mirror glitch as well makes it feel less of a certainty or related to alternate universe theory. You say you've been tired. Perhaps the simplest explanation is a lack of sleep, causing visual anomalies. Although you did say the scratch was there for 2 weeks, and then it just wasn't. So it seems like more than sleep deprivation too. The author's response. I thought that it was probably a chip of paint on the face too, but I could feel that there was a deep scratch, like when you run your finger over it, or put your fingernail in it. It feels deep, embedded, like a tiny fissure. I'm pretty sure the mirror glitch was a neural misfire of some description. I have had some neurology issues in the past, and have a few sleep disorders, so it's not entirely out of the question. I'm not sure that either of these things are actual glitches. It was just notable that they both happened on the same day. So back to my opinion, yeah, I don't know. They could be related to just not getting enough sleep. But again, the fact that you saw that the scratch was there for 2 whole weeks, that's what's bugging me. If it was just 1 day, that would be different. And that concludes both stories for the day. I know you enjoyed it, so hit the like button. And if you want notifications for all my future uploads, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. I'll see you there.